Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
My dad's bigger than your dad. Well, my dad knows how to fight better than your dad does. Well, your dad's ugly. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. I'm Sam Bushman with another hard-hitting News the Networks Refuse to Use style broadcast. So the Straits of Hormuz in debate. You got the Iranians saying we're going to block this sucker. Then Trump says, well, I'm going to block your block. And then someone else says, I'm going to knock your block off. And then somebody else says, hey, man, I'm going to, obliterate you if you keep blocking. And so now the block, and we got a ceasefire where everybody's firing during the ceasefire. And now what we say is, hey, they pretended they could block, but they really can't. Now I'm going to peacefully guide my people through this Strait of Hormuz. It's all good. It's safe. It's happening. I got this together. They can't stop me, baby. And now we kind of don't know what's really going on. They're firing missiles. We said they didn't have any missiles. We said we obliterated their military, but now they got missiles. They're firing at us. And then we say, yeah, but nanny, those missiles can't harm me. And then my dad's bigger than your dad, Dr. Scott Bradley. So there. I mean, isn't that kind of what we've spiraled to?
Well, this is an abject lie. It really is. When they say they're going to escort vessels through the straits with U.S. naval vessels, there's a huge problem here. A couple of issues that we probably need to talk about. Number one, to do that, they needed to have cover from bases in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia said, heck no, we're not doing this. We are not going to get so engaged in this that it's going to flatten some more of our territory. It's pretty flat anyway, but I guess you might talk about high rises. But the fact of the matter is, the Trump administration said, we are going to do, I think they called it Project Freedom or something like that. We're going to escort through. And then they said, oh, no, never mind. The negotiations are going so good with Iran right now, they're ready to capitulate. We're not going to do it. But the bottom line was Saudi Arabia said, no, we are not going to engage on this and put more of our people at risk over this thing. And they walked away from it. The real bottom line of it is, though, that the blockages are going to stop when the insurance companies and the owners decide it's safe enough to go through, and they are nowhere close to that at this point. I mean, Lloyd's.
Well, and the reason they're not, though, is because they've been played with so much. They don't really know what's really hyperbole versus what's reality, and they don't know even who's telling them the truth at this point, do they, Doctor?
Well,
I mean, I don't mean to overstate this, but that's really the problem, right?
Well, first thing in the morning yesterday, I got really grumpy because the administration was pimping us about this idea that, oh, yeah, the negotiations are so good, and we're going to put this Project Freedom or whatever it was going through, and I guess we're not going to do that because we don't want to tip over the negotiations and everything. They lied to us. I hate being lied to, Sam. And they lied to us. It was because the Saudis said no. And you know what? They say the first casualty of war is truth. But that's what kills me. This administration has been so disingenuous, so completely, and you hit the nail on the head when you said, it's on again, it's off again, and the owners are doing this, and the insurances think that, and what they're hearing is so many false narratives, they don't know what to believe, and they're going to play their cards real close to their vest, and it's not going to move through the straits until they're pretty confident, because the insurers are going to have to pay for losses. The ship owners are going to lose their assets.
Well, if they're not careful, and if people die who are on these ships and stuff like that, then they're going to have massive lawsuits on their hands, too. In other words, insurance companies might not even cover it. In fact, if we're not careful, we'll find out that the insurance companies already wrote themselves protections from this kind of stuff happening to where the insurance might not even pay if they're not very wise and careful, Doctor.
Absolutely. But the thing that irritated me most yesterday morning, I mean, I kind of expected to be disappointed on things, but the administration lied through their teeth at the American people when they're, and by the way, it took me about 5 minutes of further investigation from other sources out there for me to discover the blatant lie that was being told to the American people about how Iran was on its knees waiting, begging to sign the peace treaty, and it was going so well, they just thought they'd go that route and blah, blah, blah. Iran is in no way, shape, or form ready to capitulate. In fact, they're more entrenched than they were, and we could talk about that at great length.
And I personally believe that's because they're getting basically funding and support and everything else from communist China, supposedly our most favored nation trading partner. China's being duplicitous in this. On one hand, they're publicly saying, oh, yeah, we got to work this out. We need to negotiate. On the other hand, I believe they're providing the real backbone for Iran to weather this thing. And so now we're a week past the war, quote, resolution 60-day deadline. What the heck's happening with that? And the answer is Trump says, well, we're not really fighting. We got a ceasefire, so don't worry about it. But yet we're firing at them. They're firing at us. Israel's firing at everybody. Iran's firing at everybody. I don't even know what a ceasefire means these days, Doctor.
Well, it's disingenuous at every turn. And the fact of the matter, we could talk at length about that 60-day thing. I'm confident that that's going to go to court. There's going to be all sorts of rolling gun battles over this thing, and the law will be ignored again. It's kind of like, well, did the people come into the country illegally as people that came across the border illegally? Well, they broke the law. What's the president doing right now? And does the law apply or doesn't it apply? And you're absolutely right. What we have is a bunch of euphemistic terms that are being thrown around. Oh, well, we've never agreed that it was constitutional. By the way, back in 1973, when that war resolution was passed, 2/3 of both houses passed it because they overrode Nixon's veto of it. Okay? There were strong feelings about this. By the way, people ought to go back and read that resolution again. It was very succinct. It was straightforward. It was without any bend. And then we have guys like Trump that are ignoring it, and Clinton did, and Obama did. Well, it doesn't apply in this instance. A ceasefire has to, it's not really within that 60-day window because, a ceasefire doesn't count on the clock.
Well, and we stopped firing for a while, and now we're firing again, so the 60 days starts over because it's not really the same conflict, right? We're playing all kinds of games with all kinds of words. And President Trump right now keeps telling us, hey, the Iran war, we already won it, and it's pretty much over any minute. But yet at the same time, it's going to be crazy if it doesn't end soon. We're going to go ballistic and expand the war a ton. And then, well, how soon will things in the Middle East go back to normal? And I don't think they'll ever go back to normal. If we're not very careful, we've created the World War III quagmire that we'll never get out of, Doctor.
Well, in answer to the question, how soon will it go back to normal? My answer would be one word: never. I think we have reached.
Well, you got the new normal now, right?
Yeah. If you think it's going to go back to February 27th, 2026, it's not going to. There is a dynamic afoot that's fully underway right now. There's a whole new cast of characters. There's a new, if you will, hegemony that's being created. That's where who's the big dog? Okay, the United States has been the big dog. The United States had I think 13 bases in the region. They've all been flattened. And that is becoming more and more and more apparent as it comes out in the press that we have this thing is literally changed the whole recipe of what's happening in the Middle East. We've got people like Pakistan coming out of this thing that's playing the mediator. We've got China and Russia, as you point out. I mean, they're playing behind the scenes. China has been for years putting together an alternative transportation system that gets rid of the maritime stuff that's going on. You ship it by ship and you get things. No, it can be interdicted. They've got a major infrastructure upgrade they've been doing with Iran for years, and they'll find their way around it. And so these new players, and plus UAE, United Arab Emirates, they pulled out of OPEC. They're going to deal with whomever they want to deal with, and they'll take whatever payment comes. The petrodollar is being threatened, and holy cow, you'll start to see what the real dollar's worth when everybody starts doing that, because we have pumped so many fake dollars into the world's economy since Nixon did this, that everybody wanted dollars. Yeah, bring us more, bring us more. Well, suddenly nobody needs them, because they'll take gold, they'll take euro, they'll take the Chinese currency, they'll take rubles, they'll take a basket of currency. They don't care. And so these kind of dynamics, you can't put the genie back in the bottle when you do this, I don't believe. I don't think we're ever going back to the old normal.
I wish we were. Predict we're not. Dr. Scott Radley and Sam Bushman. Hey, man, what about this Donald Trump ballroom? It was secret, then it was public, then it was paid for by private money. Now it's tax dollars. The dollar amounts have ballooned. Let's talk about it. Liberty Roundtable Live.
Are you watching what's happening in our country and asking, what can I do? Join the John Birch Society in Salt Lake City, June 6th, for a powerful one-day conference. The day includes a host of respected speakers, 2 meals, and meaningful connections. You'll gain clarity on the issues and walk away with practical steps you can take to your community. Reserve your seat today at jbs.org/SLC26. That's jbs.org/SLC26.
You know where the solution can be found, Mr. President? In churches, in wedding chapels, in maternity wards across the country and around the world. More babies will mean forward-looking adults, the sort we need to tackle long-term, large-scale problems. American babies in particular are likely going to be wealthier, better educated, and more conservation-minded than children raised in still industrializing countries. As economist Tyler Cowen recently wrote, quote, "By having more children, you're making your nation more populous, thus boosting its capacity to solve climate change. The planet does not need for us to think globally and act locally so much as it needs us to think family and act personally. The solution to so many of our problems, at all times and in all places, is to fall in love, get married, and have some kids."
All right, we're talking about Trump's ballroom. It was kind of a secret ballroom. People weren't supposed to know about it. And then it was like everybody knew about it. And then there was a big old scandal. Then it was like, hey, it's going to be, cost $400 million. It was going to be private donations, all good. And then it basically turned out, well, wait a minute, hold on. Now it's 1.4 trillion, or no, 1.4 billion. Okay, 400 million, 1.4 billion. What the heck? Double, triple the amount. And now the idea is that taxpayers are going to pay for it. What the heck gives with this, Dr. Bradley? This is this is where you get somebody that thinks he's a king, or you get somebody that thinks they're just too powerful, where there's no real accountability here. Well, and wasn't Donald the guy that started his administrations going, yeah, everything I build under cost, and I do this and that. I'm different than everybody else. And now we're back to the same old, Doctor.
Well, it's what they're now talking about is a hardened site that'll be under the ballroom. That will be a duck and cover kind of place for anybody that's in the building at the time. Something really goes upside down and backwards. But the thing there's so many things to talk about this, and I know we don't have time, but I find it very fortuitous that they have this little escapade that they had with the White House Correspondents' Group dinner. Some guy runs through with a shotgun and a handgun and stuff, and supposedly shoots an agent, gets one pellet in their vest, which I think came from another agent's shotgun. But there's 5 or 6, 7 rounds touched off. Nobody gets any blood. I mean, this is absolutely astounding. Somebody's got to go to the range a little bit more often. And the guy gets captured because he fell down. Okay, and suddenly it's like, oh, we need a more secure site. And Congress has got to get behind this. And by golly, this is perfect that we're going to have this new ballroom. And holy cow, how forward-looking this is. Oh, and by the way, let's put a bomb shelter under it. I mean, it's one of those things where it's such a moving target. The story gets adrift, and it's just craziness, but it always goes at taxpayer expense. And so these stories.
If you know that you can strong arm and get money, That's what you're going to do, Doctor, and that's kind of what they've done here. And that's why I say Donald Trump has changed from a guy, an outsider that says, hey, I'm going to manage costs, I'm going to be responsible, I'm going to be accountable, because when you borrow money from places and or you have investors or whatever, there's this accountability in the private sector. That's now gone. And he's now basically moving to politician mode where it's like, hey, I don't really need to worry about that anymore like I used to, because you know what? There's no one to hold me accountable. There's no one to rein in the spending. There's no one, all right, on the international stage, Trump and other nations are talking about withdrawing from NATO. Do you think it's going to happen is the question from one of the listeners and the viewers of the weekly webinars. I say not a chance on this earth. They love that talking point, but they'll never get anything done. It's kind of like prosecuting the criminals. They've identified criminals left and right, they claim, but they've prosecuted virtually none of them. So the same thing will happen here. We'll talk about it. We might even make a move to get out of it that'll be overturned before it gets done or something like that. But the reality of it really happening, Doctor, in its totality, not even maybe, sir.
There's not even two chances. Well, I guess two chances, slim and none, and with emphasis on none. There is not a snowball's chance that we're going to get out of NATO. That is a building block of the United Nations. It is, as we talk about, a regional arrangement under the United Nations Charter. And what it is, it's a military arm of the United Nations. And we see how it gets used, like, for example, in Bosnia-Herzegovina, back when the United Nations screwed up that peacekeeping event to the point they called NATO in to do it. But no, people need to understand this is going to take a concerted effort from the people of the United States to get their representatives to say it's time to shut this United Nations governance body down. I mean, and
here's what'll happen if it does get too hot and they do want to really, in theory, need to shut it down. In other words, if it becomes so tenuous that they've really got to do something, what they'll really do is they'll basically couch it in reforms, or else they'll even jettison it for a more sinister. So we got rid of NAFTA, and I bring this up because it relates to our earlier discussion, and we replaced it with a USMCA. We claim it was better, but it's really worse. It's really more on steroids. We did the same thing with the United Nations and the League of Nations. We said, oh man, the League of Nations is bad. We better get it better. And so even if they're forced to do something, all they'll do is change the name to protect the innocent. Pardon the pun, but there you go, Doctor. Isn't that how that works really too?
Well, it is absolutely. It's like they just, we're going to rebuild this better. Well, we got the Federal Reserve out of that, guys,
Yeah, so see, will they get rid of the IRS? No, all we did was kept the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, and we added the ERS, the External Revenue Service. See, we don't get rid of things, we just morph things. And then we complain about the IRS, and it's like, well, we better reform it. Glad we got some reforms in here. And then the next people come, and then it's like, oh, the bad guys didn't reform it like they promised. We'll take stab 2 at it. And then somebody else will say something, and then if it gets too bad, they'll get rid of the IRS, but replace it with something even more sinister. So you got a moving target with the ballroom. You got a moving target on this NATO thing, too. I'm telling you right now, and they're not getting rid of it anytime soon. Will Trump get his wish to punish members of Congress who advise military members they need not follow orders or unlawful orders? I got to make that clear. Unlawful orders. I don't know. I don't think he'll get his wish. I think they can say and do anything they want on the congressional floor without any accountability. That's been put into law, too, Doctor.
Well, right now what's happening, Senator Mark Clark and I think it was 5 other members of Congress, former intelligence agency and military members, that put out a video, I think it was in November, telling U.S. military personnel, you don't need to follow unlawful orders. That's absolutely, totally, completely accurate. It's written into the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It's written into international protocols. It was clearly...
Yeah, then you start to say, don't bother me with the facts. I've made up my mind.
Well, here's the deal. There's a movement afoot within the Department of Defense or Department of War, whatever the heck they're calling it now, that they're going to demote Mark Kelly, a senator out of Arizona, to a lower rank, and I don't know if that'd bust him to a sailor or whatever, but they're talking about demoting him and then prosecuting him.
Yeah, he'll be like Private Gomer Pyle pretty soon.
Yeah. Well, it's just not going to happen. They heard this past week, an appeals court was hearing the case. They seemed very skeptical of being able to do that. When they lose that, I suspect Hegseth might take it to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, if they read the Constitution clearly, if they read the UCMJ, they're going to slap them down. It's not going to happen, but it's a pain in the butt for everybody. And I think if you offend me, I am going to take you to the ground. And that's about what's happening right now. It's lawfare in another level. It's just absurd.
Don't you ever cross the lead gang member, my friend. That won't go well for you. That's all we're talking about, right?
I'm sorry, but you're probably right.
You know, hey, man, why do you want to punish members of Congress for expressing what is legally unlawful? And most importantly, they have every right to think and say that if they want to. I have every right to say, look, folks, I don't think anybody should follow unlawful orders anytime, anywhere. What do you think of that, Doctor?
Well, I think you ought to be prosecuted. But Article 1, Section 6, Clause 1 of the Constitution specifies the protection that Congress has so the executive cannot harass them. That was exactly why it was written.
Well, but what about this idea that I just should be able to have my own opinion? And why would somebody want to recommend? Is Trump saying that they should follow unlawful orders?
Yeah. Well, and then you got the First Amendment.
It works two ways, right? If I say don't follow unlawful orders, then somebody else says you can't say that. Then I'm saying, are you saying that we should follow unlawful orders? Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's the problem. The First Amendment, too, press and speech things were written to make sure that political issues could be fully exposed if people need to know about it. I mean, this whole thing is such a facade that I just find myself, I'm just speechless almost, and that's pretty hard to make me that, as you know.
All right, one final topic before the end of the hour. Do you know about the apparent shoot-down of the F-35 by Iran in combat? And this is where we're claiming it's not happening. They're claiming it happened, and, you never get to the truth, right?
I have watched the images of that happening. And the F-35, the apparent F-35, it has the profile of an F-35. We have been flying them in combat now. And that's one of the things that really ticks me off about this stuff. We spend billions developing technology to use to protect the nation. And then we expose it, whether you're keying a mic, turning on a radar, whether you're flying an airplane, whether it shows the image or the signature of that on a radar screen. People begin to build a case whereby they can counteract what we have developed for the cost of billions of dollars.
Well, and if they can really get one to go down and take control of it, then they can reverse engineer the whole thing, too.
Exactly. Now, the F-35 has been exposed enough times, I think they're breaking the code. And what happened, it appears to me, there was a passive tracking and a shoot down, probably not using electronic control, which, in my opinion, this F-35 did not have any clue they were going to get hit. And there was no ejection by the pilot, fortunately, but the pilot was wounded apparently and was able to limp back into quote-unquote friendly landing, but it was damaged severely. Now, here's the deal. They can do it once, they can do it again. We enter a highly dangerous area and time when we're tipping our hand at every turn.
And if they can even do it at all, they've proven something. They've made some real points on the international stage, Doctor.
That they have indeed. And if our fifth-generation fighter aircraft can now be shot down, somebody else says, tell me how you did that again? I mean, Russia, China, certainly other nations around the world that are unfriendly are saying, hey, share your data with us. What did you do to get this to occur? And what we're doing is, it's like, we got to complain about this guy that shared some secrets militarily. We're giving our secrets away on the battlefield every single day.
We should do it if we're defending the greatest country on the face of the earth, but that's the only reason we should do it.
Right.
And that's why it should be so spared to where they don't have any idea what we have, and that way we could keep America safe. That's really what it's all intended for, but we're blowing it on the international stage 66 ways from Sunday. Our prayers are for peace, but we see nothing but war in our future with the way we're acting as a country and as a people. We've become a warlike people, and it's tragic. Celebrate Mother's Day. Mothers are the emblem of peace. They rock the cradle. They raise righteous, peaceful people that advocate for peace and liberty, following the Savior, Jesus Christ. Dr. Scott Bradley, I'm Sam Bushman. Thanks for being alongside for the ride. Spread the word, share the love, and God save the Republic of the United States of America.